This is Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. I want to say thank you for joining me today. I'm excited. We are here with Mary Juetten. Mary is an attorney by practice. She actually is in the world of helping all of us that have a hard time understanding intellectual property. She is the co-founder and principal of Anova Pro Consulting, and she is the CEO and founder of Trademarking, which is a software service that helps with intellectual property and all of those things that she can help explain in just a second. So help me welcome Mary.
Thank you. Good morning. I wanted to clear up one thing. I am an attorney by having a degree, but I don't practice law in the state of Arizona. I don't practice law at all. So I just need to clear that up.
Gotcha. Sorry about it. And we actually just talked about that. So she went to law school. It's funny because she told me she's a recovering accountant. I love that. And went to law school, but then decided she wasn't going to practice because she found a different niche that actually really worked very well for her. And maybe that's what we'll talk about now, Mary. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in your current business?
Well, when I was in law school, I took a really interesting class, which was called Managing Intellectual Property Portfolios, which maybe not to everyone on this would sound interesting, but it interested me, and especially when I found out how many people lost intellectual property. And I'm not talking about Apple or Samsung or any of these big giants. I'm talking about the average person who had a business where something went wrong and they either infringed on someone else's intellectual property or lost their own. So I thought to myself, well, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And then as a follow-up to that class, I took a clinic where I was helping startups and entrepreneurs with, amongst other things, assigning intellectual property and these type of things. And I came up with the idea that there's got to be an easy way to raise the awareness of intellectual property, help people identify what they have, help them secure it, but not at the price of going to attorney. So I came up with the idea for TrackLight. That came first before Anova Pro. And what it is, it's like TurboTax. You know, if you do your taxes, you don't have to know accounting, thank God, and you don't have to know tax law. So what TrackLight provides is it's a questionnaire, and it's called ID Your IP, and you're able to just walk through it, and it's like filling in TurboTax. At the end, you get a report, and it tells you you might have a trademark, you might have a copyright, oh, you might have these issues with your trade secrets. Because one of the biggest problems that we find are people think, hey, I don't have a technology company. I have a search firm, I have a restaurant, I have something like this. I don't have intellectual property. So, but they do. If you have a business, if you have a URL on the internet, whatever you have some type of intellectual property. The idea is to get out there and to raise awareness, and so that people aren't afraid of intellectual property.
I love that because it is scary. And I think before we started recording, I told you that when I met with my attorney, we started talking about, I actually purchased a business and we were moving it from a different state to Texas. And, you know, I didn't understand that it's different depending upon state by state. I mean, it was very confusing. So can you help me, but if we wanted to define intellectual property, what does that mean exactly?
Well, intellectual property, if you think about it this way, it's all of your, it's not just the idea, but it's all of your identifying, whether it's your brand, whether it's your process, your know-how, your name. It's all the things associated with your business. And the reason that you have something like the USPTO, which is the United States Patent and Trademark Office, is because they can decide and make the rules on who uses what name. Because what they're ultimately trying to do is protect people. So if I went and bought a iPad, and it looks like an iPad, it's got an Apple on it, and if I buy that, I'm relying on the Apple name, which is their, which is their trademark. I'm relying on that when I make that purchase. So if somebody came up with something and called it Apple E and, had a little tiny Y or something like that and had the exact same product, that would create customer confusion. So the idea behind all of intellectual property is it's a right for people to use what they've developed and taken the time to protect, And it's also rooted in making sure that the customer or the consumers are protected. And then patents, which there's another common misconception. People think, oh, well, I don't have something that needs to be patented, so I don't have any intellectual property. Or the flip side of that is, hey, I'm an inventor, I have my patent, I'm done with intellectual property. But of course you're not, because you have your trademarks, you have your copyrights. So a trademark is like a brand, and then a copyright is anything that you write down. So if you write down a song and it's your song expressed and you write it down, then you have copyright in that. Copyright has a separate department, U.S. Copyright Office, where you can register your copyright. But a lot of people get confused between trademarking and copyright, because you can also copyright your slogan in the same way that you can trademark it. But the key with all of this is identifying it, is figuring out, yes, I might have a patent, I might have a trademark, I might have copyright, and then seeking the appropriate help. There's all kinds of different resources for actually protecting it. Some things you can do yourself. You can do your own trademarks, you can do your own provisional patents, although that's a little scary. And you can, there are lawyers who specialize in small startup businesses. You don't have to go to a big firm. That said, a lot of big firms have small business programs. You have LegalZoom that can help you. Once you know what you have, they can help you. So it is very scary, but the first step is identifying it. So the other piece about patents is that it's part of the U.S. Constitution. It's right in there. So patents are an interesting area right now, because the U.S. is in the process of changing the way that patents work for the first time in like 50 years. So there's a lot of information out there that's free for people, but it's realizing that first step, and that's we found our niche, is getting people to be aware that this is something they need to consider for their business. So our idea is, hey, take this questionnaire, know what you have, and then take the steps. So it gives you a roadmap and tells you, okay, maybe you could do this yourself or go to an attorney. And then we help people by storing their ideas, because there's another piece of intellectual property called trade secrets. And I like to think of them as kind of the unsung heroes of intellectual property, because patents, trademarks, copyrights, you have to register those in order to, excuse me, in case somebody infringes on them, or you want to seek some sort of legal remedy. But with trade secrets, it's the other way around. You don't tell anybody them, you don't register them, but you take all the proper steps to protect them, which is slightly different state to state. But the general idea is that you have to keep it secret. You have to tell your employees and contractors that it's secret. You have to mark it secret, keep it password protected, and it has to be something that's kind of special. It can't just be like, oh, here's the phone book. That's my customer list. But a customer list is a great example. I have heard so many different people who've hired employees, shared with them the customer list. They've worked there for a year, and then they leave the customer list up across the street. So something like that, you can keep a trade secret for free as long as you take the right steps, and then you have a remedy to go after that person if they do steal it.
Oh, very interesting. Let me ask you this. I work with the people that watch the show mainly are product-based businesses, usually mompreneurs that have product-based businesses. And, some of them have been in business for a while, some may be just starting out. And it becomes confusing as, okay, should a person trademark their brand? And then what should you file copyrights on?
Okay, so as far as trademarking your brand, if you develop a name for something, the first thing that you should do when it's free is you should go on and see in your state, do you have to register that name and brand if you're only doing commerce in your state. If you're doing commerce on the internet or you're doing commerce outside your state, you should look on the USPTO, make sure someone else is not using that name. I have a friend who set up a company here in Arizona only to realize that federally somebody else had the name. so she can do business in Arizona, you know, unless they figure it out. So yes, I mean, you should trademark your name. Now, there's something called a common law trademark, and remember, I'm not giving legal advice. This is just kind of general advice. There's common law trademark means that when you start using something, you can then put the little TM at the end and say, this is my name, I'm using it in commerce, not just business cards, but actually offering something for sale. So I'm using it in commerce, that's my name, and that can be good enough if you don't want to spend the few $100s that it takes to register it federally. When you register it federally and it goes all the way through, then you get the little R that you get to put at the end. Gotcha. So it is really good practice to protect your brand, because you don't want somebody else setting up across the street with a very similar name and then having to argue over it. You can say, look, I've been using this name for 10 years. I have a common law trademark. You need to stop. But it's better if you have that federal protection, and you should have it if you're working on the internet. And as far as copyright, the way copyright works is as soon as you, and this technical term, but express it in a tangible, it's original work, so it has to be yours, expressed in a tangible medium. So I take notes on what I'm saying. We're recording this video. Whatever is going on, you now have copyright in this because it exists and we put it in a tangible medium of expression. That allows you to put the C on it. But let's say somebody, took a big clip of this and then started selling it on the internet. Well, in order for you to say, you need to stop, you're violating my copyright, you need to actually register it then with the Copyright Office. And that additional step gives you that ability. And that is something that attorney can help you with, that registration. Common thing to register is when you do your website, you should always put at the bottom this copyright with the year and the name of your company. But once your website is at an actual, okay, it's all done, then it's good practice to register that.
Okay, as a copyright.
Yeah, as your copyright, and then it's with the office that way. That if somebody does steal your stuff, then you have a remedy. The thing is, if you haven't started your business yet, you can use Tracklight, or you can just go talk to an attorney. If you have started your business, you can use Tracklight because there is a version for people who have. Oops. That wasn't good.
We're having lots of difficulties here.
Yeah, I just smacked my own computer. There is a version of Tracklight where you're basically inventorying everything that you have at this point in time. And, there's nothing that stops you from taking a pause and filling in, okay, this is what I have, and it will tell you what you should potentially copyright or trademark.
I love that.
To me, it's...
Yeah, I love the feature that you can actually enter that all in and it will give you suggestions because, like I said, it really is kind of confusing. Let me ask you this. So in the world of being online and in the world of, I read a story the other day about an attorney / photographer that had all of these pictures on Pinterest that she had pinned. And legally, she was now concerned that she was infringing on someone's copyright, so she deleted her entire account. So what can you tell us about that, like the whole Pinterest thing, pinning and sharing online photos, etc., as far as copyright is concerned?
An attorney friend of mine, actually, Ruth Carter, which is Carter Law Group, she did an interesting article on it because when they first came out and people were using it, you were actually liable for copyright infringements, which we've all seen the movies. At the end of the movie, the credits roll and it tells you it's $250,000 and infringement. Well, they take that pretty seriously. So when Pinterest first came out, terms and conditions said if you are using this service or their okay, you'll have to edit that out.
Their platform.
with Pinterest, if you were using Pinterest and you violated someone else's copyright, Pinterest would not protect you. It was the other way around. Pinterest could come after you for their legal fees. So a lot of my friends in the legal community were telling people, don't use Pinterest. Now, my understanding is they did change their terms since then. Personally, I don't use it, not because of that issue, just because I don't have time, and I'm afraid it would become kind of like Facebook, my personal Facebook and things like that. But there was a big issue because it's another common misconception. Just because something's on the internet and it doesn't have the C on it to say copyright doesn't mean that it's not copywritten. If it's somebody else's, then it doesn't meet the test of being original from you. So you are likely violating someone's copyright. I think now, actually my son told me a funny joke. He's like, well, what's the world's biggest lie, Mom? And he's 15. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to hear the punchline to this joke. And he said, the world's biggest lie now is, I have read and I agree to the terms and conditions. So what people do is they just click that box, and we're all guilty of it. But in those terms and conditions are things about who can use whatever you're doing on that site, whether whatever you're doing on that site is your property still or not. At one point, Google had terms that said whatever you put into Google Docs, they could use. So think about that.
Wow.
I think they've since amended them, but there was a series of articles about 4 months ago coming out of Los Angeles on that topic. So we all don't read these terms of use, but they're very, very important. So like with our site, with Tracklight, when we do the online piece, we explicitly state anything that you put into our questionnaire, or we have a vault that's kind of like an online notebook or a place for your trade secrets. Anything that goes in there, it's not cloud-based, it's client-based. So it's on a dedicated server, it's not floating out there. But also, we don't own any of it. We're not going to use it, we're not going to disclose it. You know, it's in a vault, and that's what our product's called. It's called the IP Vault. But people really need to be careful with cloud storage, with Dropbox and some of these other things. You put your secrets to your company on the internet, it's not secret anymore.
True. It's scary. It is a little scary when you think. I mean, I love cloud computing, but I think in the grand scheme of things, we all need to be careful and be mindful of what we're doing.
Right, right.
Let me ask you this. What about if you have a blog, or let's say that you have a business, and within that business on your website you have a blog, and you eventually find out that someone's kind of stealing your material and using your, I mean, just word for word. What should someone do when they find that that's happening to them?
What I would do if somebody was doing it to me is that I would reach out and ask the person, you know, I understand. I would either phone or email them and say, I understand this is happening. You know, would you like me to give you permission to do this? And can you please attribute these words to me? I'm not a big fan of the send, as they call in the legal community, the cease and desist letter. I just think it's better. It's kind of my values are that we should connect and collaborate. Now, I'm not so Pollyanna to believe that there aren't people who are just going to outright steal your stuff, but I mean, it's a lot of time and effort if you're going to try to go after somebody. If you can't get them to attribute it, then I would definitely tell them that you're going to seek some advice, and that you hope that if they can't attribute it to you, then they could take it down, and then I would because people put a lot of effort into these blogs and into writing, and I do my own writing also, and I would be upset if somebody took it and didn't attribute. I think it's a compliment if someone takes it, but they need to attribute back at least to where it was originally published.
Exactly. And let me ask you this. So I also get this question from people sometimes, is like they're writing a blog post. Maybe they're writing a blog post on an amazing bedroom. And within that bedroom, they've found a website that has some great photos of some chairs and some lamps and some different things. And they take those photos, maybe they copy them from the website or from a magazine, and they attribute them on their blog to where they came from. But that's still not, I mean, they're still truly need to ask permission. Am I correct on that?
I believe so. Like, this is my understanding, is that if you I wrote an article about intellectual property. I think that's how we ended up connecting, but on the next woman. So I had definitions in it from the United States Trademark Office. I referenced an article that had been brought to my attention by someone else. So I sent them footnotes, but there weren't any pictures. But, with the pictures, there's the whole thing of, there are free libraries. There are libraries where you can pay to use. But if you just take something from somebody else's website, then you need to be able to put underneath it, reprinted with permission from,
right.
Which is, you see that all the time. So just taking it and attributing it, I don't believe I don't think it's legally correct, but I don't want to pass an opinion, but I don't think it's morally right to do that. You should be going to somebody saying, hey, I want to use your pictures. This is where it's going to be. I mean, why not just ask? It might actually open up another business relationship for you. Who knows?
Oh, that's a terrific point. I totally agree. It's just, how about communicating and saying, hey, I love your work, and here's what I do, and you never know what commonalities you might have in common.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What about, okay, so if, let's say you had someone, I deal with a lot of people that have like true products like jewelry or furniture or lamps, candlesticks. Can those things can you do a copyright on like a chair?
There are some strange things that you can do patents on, like plants. And then there's two different kinds of patents. There's like the utility patent and the form patent. If you think of the Coke bottle, how they have that specific form. And I think there are, like, some chairs have specific kind of, there's the design patent, the utility patent. So there might be patents on that. But as far as copywriting, that gets into more like when you take pictures of it and you copyright it. So, I mean, that is getting into a little bit more than, that's something definitely you want to go and talk to an attorney about. But knowing that you have, okay, I have a design, so I have a potential patent, I have a potential trademark for the name of whatever the chair is. So knowing that gives you the information to ask an expert.
Because
it's into this really technical about where, yeah, anyways.
That's, I like that. I think that's great advice. I think anytime that we're in that point where we're designing something and we're questioning that, maybe that's the time to seek. We know we have some intellectual property there, and we can check that out based on your software system that you use, and then maybe advance that to an attorney if we needed to.
Right, because the whole thing with both Innova Pro, where we do the face-to-face, the idea with Innova Pro is it's for the companies that are a little bit further along and they want to kind of take it to the next level. So they might be going to get funding from investors. They might want to do the new crowdfunding that's coming out, not the rewards-based, but the equity-based. They might be wanting to do something to advance and hire employees for the first time outside of friends and family, all of that type of stuff. And those are the people that they know business, but they don't know intellectual property. So they have very specific questions that a broad questionnaire won't necessarily address. So those people we meet with and we do kind of the whole face-to-face. But in both companies, we never advocate not using attorneys. In fact, we collaborate with a lot of attorneys in terms of we're identifying these things and then we pass it on. So we're a little bit of a channel for attorneys. We don't replace them. We actually replace some of the work that they don't necessarily want to do, which is sitting with a client and having to charge them for asking them questions that they can now do online once we release ID or IP, which is hopefully in September.
Got it. Well, I think this has been terrific. I think it's such a complex subject that we could probably go on forever, but I appreciate you kind of narrowing it down for us. I was going to say dumbing it down, but that doesn't sound nice, but helping us maybe have a better understanding. But let me ask you this. If someone wanted to connect with you, where would you want to send them? Where should they connect with you at?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and so I have a public profile on LinkedIn under my name. I'm on Twitter. It's just at Tracklight, and it's TRAK, no C. So TRAKLIGHT is my Twitter handle. And then we have the tracklight.com website, which, I have a blog. It doesn't allow comments yet, coming in the next version. But you can also contact me, info@tracklight.com, or on Innova Pro, there's a contact me. So it's innovaproconsulting.com. Very long name, sorry.
That's Mary, I appreciate it, and we will also link all of those things up in the show notes so that people can actually get to the website and maybe test out your IP tools. I think that's a great feature.
Right, and what we're doing right now, because our Vault, which is the storage product, it's up and running, but we're collecting beta testers right now to sign up to use ID Your IP, and it will be a $59 value, and all we ask in return is that you follow us on Twitter and give us kind of your likes, dislikes, and feedback on our pricing. So you can go to our website, tracklight.com, and scroll down and sign up there, or if you go to, it's kind of our tagline, gotintellectualproperty.com, you can sign up there.
Terrific. So, well, we'll link that up.
Okay, and a little plug for using LaunchRock, which is a really neat product, neat company that allows you to collect beta sign up without having to integrate all of that into your website. So,
is that what you guys are using?
Yeah, we're using LaunchRock. It's launchrock.com, and that's what's powering our sign up process.
Oh, terrific. We'll link that up as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Mary, thank you, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate that you have such a great understanding of IP, intellectual property, and if we need something, we'll contact you on your website.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, that's our show, and thanks again for tuning in. Hey, I have a huge favor. I'd like for you to join us over at www.successfulwomentalk.com. Join our email list, and on that list, you'll be a VIP. You'll be receiving all of our newest updates, newest interviews, our newsletter, and any tips and tricks we have for organizing your business and getting raving fans and customers that actually just sing your praises. So again, thanks again for tuning in. Check us out next week for another episode of SuccessfulWomenTalk.com. Thanks, guys.